to add before we shift to Erica
Oh,
Jane?
no,
All
no,
right.
not right
Erica
now.
Jane it
So,
is. Erica
thank
Jane
you.
it is. All right.
Okay,
Hello.
bye.
All right. Bye bye. Are you going to stay a bit or are you going? No, I guess there's the answer. Actions speak louder than words. Actions speak loud. Hello, Erica
Yes.
Jane.
Hi, I'm finishing up some potato chips. They're just a few minutes from being done.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Like your dress, Erica Jane. Like your dress. It's fun. Fun.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, very innocent and very, very delightful color. Very cool, very cool. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So you're making potato crisps?
Yes.
Is that what?
Yeah.
Whoa! Can we see? Can we see?
I don't know if you'll be able to see.
Oh yeah. Oh, we can take one out. Take one out, and we see. Oh yeah! Wow! Wow! I'm impressed. Oh, I feel like some now. Dang. So you basically the way to make these is you just fry them and they're just very thin cut and you just fry them, right?
Yeah, I'm doing them in the air fryer. So
Oh,
they're pretty good.
oh. And they're just plain flavored? What kind of flavor?
They've got some Cajun flavoring.
Right, right. I have some of that actually. I don't know. Somebody was, when we were moving, it was, Olivia was going to throw it out. So I said, all right, well, I don't know.
This in scrambled eggs is so good. It's
Wow,
the best
interesting.
spring
Interesting, interesting. What's been happening? What's been happening, Erica? Anything?
Let's see. The biggest thing I think that came up was the other day. I'm sorry. I'm standing right next to their
No
fire,
problem.
so
No problem. Yeah. We don't hear it. We don't hear it. So it's okay.
I was out with Joe and I were out with the chickens, and oops, hi Beena.
Oh.
So, I mean, you know, watching them and their behavior is always really entertaining from a hierarchy perspective.
Yeah.
But my very favorite chicken is like the sweetest, gentlest, kindest. She never gets after anybody else. She always gets picked on by all the other chickens. She has the best disposition. And it's funny, I was thinking about this. That's actually how Axel was too. He was like super sweet, very gentle.
And what's the chicken's name again?
Her name is Pearl.
Pearl. I didn't want to forget. You mentioned it before, but I didn't want to forget.
Axel never bullied any other dog ever. He was just very easygoing. And Pearl is the same way, and she's, I love them all, but she's definitely my favorite.
Oh,
and so we were out there the other day, and they have an interesting hierarchy. I feel like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like there are some that are above others, but then the one that's below them is actually above another one that picks on that one. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But one of the ones who's actually near the top of the hierarchy, but gets picked on relentlessly by the head hen, who is like twice her size. She was doing something up next to the head hen, and she didn't want her to be standing there, so she started getting after her, and I was just coming back outside from being in the house, so I was clear across the yard, and Joe wasn't standing next to him, and so I start to come outside, and there's this big ruckus, and Ethel, which is the one that was being picked on, is like running away, and Gertie's chasing after her and grabbing at her feathers and everything. And Ethel's like screaming, shrieking, making these horrible. And I start running over there to try to get them away from each other. And Pearl, who is good friend, so bizarre. Their hierarchy is so strange. Yeah. Pearl, who is, I have always thought, bottom of the pecking order. Yeah. Everyone else picks her. But she's really good friends with the head hen, who picks on everyone else but rarely picks on Pearl. But Ethel, all these names, hard to keep track. So Ethel, who is the one that's being chastised now.
Yeah, Ethel's kind of the general number 2.
Yeah, Ethel picks on Pearl the most of any of them. I mean, she is like relentless. But so Ethel is getting chased around. Gertie's, all over. And I'm running over trying to break this up between Gertie and Ethel. And Pearl is standing next to Gertie, and Ethel's like running away, and Gertie's starting to go after. And Pearl, who is a good-sized chicken and never uses her weight, doesn't ever push anybody around. She puts herself in between, Gertie and Pearl, Gertie and Ethel, and kind of jumps in between them, and
she blocks.
And she like bumped Gertie's chest and like got in front of her and is like knocking her around.
She was blocking her. Wow.
And that stopped Gertie long enough until I got over there to break up, get Gertie away from Ethel. And I was really surprised. My first reaction was, well, it's really interesting that Pearl would be standing up for a hen that picks on her all the time, Pearl is like relentless with her. And, kind of surprising that she stood up to Gertie, because Gertie can get kind of mean. So I was thinking about all of that, and about how I have always thought of Pearl as being the bottom of the pecking order, because she gets picked on by everyone else and she never retaliates, never asserts herself or whatever. And I was thinking about Axel too, and how he was the same way. And I thought, okay, well, for her to jump in and try to stop this from happening, that seems unusual. I mean, I've never seen that happen before. And so I thought, well, maybe I've been looking at her and Axel wrong, and assuming that because they are not participating in this behavior, that they're at the bottom of the pecking order. And really, maybe they're just not participating in the pecking order.
Exactly.
They just have chosen, I don't want to be part of this, and so they're just outside of it.
Right. And they'll tolerate it when it's not severe, but if it's extreme, then they'll do something to stop it.
Right.
So Pearl, from a character point of view, is an earnest, good person who's real, who's noble, who's genuine. She's got nobility in her soul. She's not just an ordinary good person. She's got nobility in her soul. What was the second one again? Gertrude is the chief. Ethel. And Ethel is the little the ambitious status seeker, right? And that's why Gertie pecks on her to keep her in her place, because Ethel feels she should be chief hen, and she's continuously after Gertie's place, and Gertie has to put her in. Of course, her being pecked on a lot by Gertie, and she's also that little bit of bully and mean and all, so she picks on Pearl a lot, of course. And Pearl just, she kind of, she just lets it be because it's not worth the effort, So.
And I have always thought it was so strange that Gertie didn't pick on Pearl. I mean, she gets after everybody else, and she's seriously like twice as big as all of the rest of them, and goes after everybody else all the time. And she lets Pearl, Pearl will eat right next to her. I think I've seen Gertie kind of peck at Pearl maybe twice in 2.5 years or whatever it's been. And I always thought that was interesting, like, I wonder why. She's maybe because she's just bottom of the pecking order, not something to concern herself with or something, but it's like, no, I think it's because Pearl is just like not participating in this.
Gertie has respect for Pearl.
Right. Right.
which is why she also let Pearl get away with the blocking, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. If Gertie was
Yep.
flat out hierarchy, that would never happen. She would have put Pearl in her place right away. But she understands what Pearl was doing, and she approves of it in her own way. So, okay, this is good. Okay, fair enough. She sees her goodness and her niceness. She appreciates it.
Right.
That's pretty profound.
Right.
That's pretty huge.
It was
But
really, it was
if you
really
are going
surprising.
to cook one of them, Ethel's first in the pot. Sorry, that's my nomination right there. Sorry, Ethel, you first. Just saying,
Ethel,
just saying, just saying.
we have four now,
Ah,
and the two that are in the middle are by far the most ornery. They are. I
yeah,
mean, Gertie can be kind of mean, but she's very smart.
yeah.
She amazes me with how tolerant she is of Pearl. And for the most part, she's pretty good. She can get in her moods,
Yeah,
but she's
but
pretty
she
good.
has
The
to
two
be
of
because she's constantly being tested by Ethel and the other little social climber who's her what's her name?
Rose, she is
Rose.
such a shit. Oh
Right,
my
exactly.
god.
So these two little sets are like constantly pressing on Gertie. So she has to be, and it's like their irritations. So okay, those two are first in the pot. Now it would be
Yep.
really fascinating when you have chicks and to have
Right.
chicks like have Pearl have the chicks and make sure
Mm-hmm.
that Pearl is able to raise her chicks in isolation and see
Right.
how that if her style of being comes out and let the chicks also
Mm-hmm.
grow to a good size before they join the pack and then see what happens in the deal. This would be a fascinating social experiment to see. Yeah, yeah,
For
that'd be really
sure.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It is
I
really
don't
interesting.
know
But
how heritable characteristics are in chickens. That'll be very interesting to see. That'll be
I
very interesting to
don't know.
see.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
question. But
yeah.
yeah,
Are,
it
are,
was
are
it
they
was
from? If I remember some of your videos, the chickens aren't all the same breed, right?
no, they're not.
Right, they're all different breeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that may be a trait of the breed as well.
It is, yeah. I had read that the Pearls breed is known as like the golden retriever of chickens. They're
Ah,
just
right. Okay. What is it? Which is called what? The breed?
an Orpington, Buff Orpington.
Buff Orpington, Orpington,
Orpington, yeah.
Orpington, and Buff Buff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Buff Orpington. Wow, interesting name. Okay, I know some chicken breeds, but that's one I don't know of. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like bantams.
Yeah.
Oh my god, they like the champions of ornery, and they're the smallest.
Mm,
They're
yes, yeah.
amazing. They're amazing. Yeah, yeah, they're amazing. So yeah, I mean we had a chicken. She was called Mother Hen because she was the tiniest, but she was the chief hen. And we had a
Right.
big speckles was this big those gray and white speckled hens. I forget the breed name. It's a kind of a gray and white
Um,
plumes.
well,
It's
we
pretty
have
common.
a Gertie is black and white, barred rock.
No, there's definitely a gray. They're gray and white. We call the speckles. She's like I don't know 5 times mother hen size, 6, 7 maybe even.
Right.
Didn't make no difference, boy. Mother hen, she was the mother hen, and she was the last one to survive too. Um,
Wow.
we had weasels and things come around, and we didn't have a appropriate place to lock them in and secure them, so they found their way in. So they kind of went native, and Mother Hen learned to fly back up into the tree. She was, and that's when we
Right.
left. There she was in the tree. The others all had been eaten, but not her. So, no, no, it was
That's
a bit sad, but
amazing.
yeah, yeah. Out in the middle of nowhere, what can you do? So. That's
Right.
very fascinating. That's really really fascinating to see
It,
such predominant personal and the BMN characteristics being displayed. So that's interesting
mm-hmm.
between Ethel and Rose because it sounds like Rose is even more of a social climber and a little nasty one. But is she just very timid?
No,
Is she small?
not at all. No,
How come
she.
she's below the pecking order of Ethel? Is what I'm trying to understand.
I don't know. That's
Oh,
that.
oh, oh,
I
oh.
none of their pecking order makes sense to me. It
Okay.
makes sense now. Gertie, it makes sense that she's at the top
Yeah,
because
yeah,
she is by far the smartest and the biggest.
yeah,
So
yeah.
with
Because
those two
big
things
is
going for
not like I said. Big is not a factor. look like with
Right,
mother hen and
right. But
speckles.
a lot of times when they're bigger, they'll push each other around. But yeah, it made sense that Gertie was at the top. But
Right.
Ethel is the smallest, and then Rose is a little bit bigger than her, and then Pearl is bigger than both of them, but smaller than Gertie. And um, for whatever reason, I don't know why. Ethel and Rose are pretty even, but I never see Rose go after Ethel, but Ethel goes after Rose every once in a while. So
Interesting, interesting,
I have no
interesting. So you never see Rose go after Ethel.
no.
Yeah. So in their pecking battle, Ethel obviously has the conditioning victory there. Very fascinating.
Yes. For whatever
Very
reason,
fascinating.
I
And
don't
does Rose challenge uh, um, Gertrude?
know.
Is that your chief friend's name, Gertrude? Because I forgot it for a second there. Yeah, Gertrude.
Um,
I keep thinking
sort
Gertie.
of. No, yeah, Gertie. I mean, her full name is Gertrude, but we call her Gertie.
Ah, that's why I was.
Um,
Okay, okay. I just all right.
um, not really. I mean, they don't. I have not. The only one that I've ever seen legitimately challenge Gertie was the hen that passed away last year. Um, and there was a lot of turmoil in the flock when she was still around because she was always challenging Gertie, and it would make, it kind of like threw everything out of whack.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Interesting.
since she passed away, they don't challenge her exactly. I mean, not like a direct challenge,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all always like I mean,
Yeah,
when there's food, they're
yeah,
jostling each other out of
yeah,
the
yeah,
way,
yeah,
and they'll try to take food out of the other one's mouths. So they do that to Gertie
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. When you feed, how do you apply the food?
Oh my gosh, I keep meaning to film this process because it cracks me up. So they get fermented whole grain food instead of like crumble, which is typical. Um,
Wow, fancy pants
so
chickens. Excuse me.
you have to like drain out the fermenting liquid
Mm,
and then put the
yeah.
grains into like a trough kind of a thing.
Mm,
So we have a little holder in their coop um, or in the run that I use like the hospital, aren't they called or hospitality trays or something? It's like they're like I don't know. I'm not sure how to do. It's like the restaurant serving
yeah,
tray
yeah.
kind of thing.
Wow.
So we put them in that, and they just. I mean, I come in and they're like jumping and going
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah,
and I sit this trough of food down, and then they all start. They get in this line. They line up four across, and they start like like the whole
yeah,
line will
yeah,
start pushing this way, and then the one on the end like runs over and comes back on this side, and then they'll kind of push each other up and
yeah,
down,
yeah.
but they basically just stand there and like inhale as much food as possible. So
Yeah.
it's an
Now,
interesting
now, next
process.
time you do this, could you do me a favor and take the food and not have it spread in the tray, but move it to the corner so that there's space in the middle, and it's little lumps in the corner, four corners, lumpy in the, you know what I mean?
I can try. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can
Before you
try.
go, kind of
Never.
to comb it into the corners so that there's a
Right.
concentration in each corner and emptiness between the spaces in the corner and emptiness in the middle. So that, in other words, that if they are all fighting over one corner, it's time to give them each a smack. In other words, that they could go to the four corners if they wanted to, and see what happens.
Right. Right.
Right. Now, often when you do that, one going there, then the other one will follow them.
Right.
Then they will shove. They literally will keep trying to exclude the one that they don't want to feed.
Yes.
There's not a logic to it, but it's amazing.
Yep.
I mean, there is sort of, because
Yep.
it's that fear. They think, oh, if you're getting it, I'm not getting it. So.
Right. They do that to Pearl pretty regularly. I mean, Gertie doesn't, but Ethel and Rose like
Yeah,
chase her away
yeah,
from the
yeah,
food and
yeah,
everything.
yeah. And do you make sure to give Pearl food separately that she can eat, that she make doesn't
Um,
kind of get too little?
she generally, I mean, she holds her own pretty
Oh,
well.
oh, okay.
Like, they peck at her and she goes, "Bleh," but she
Yeah.
like holds her ground. Um,
It keeps eating
and
anyway. Yeah.
she generally keeps trying, and a lot of times I stand out there and keep the other ones away for a little bit so that she
All
can
right.
be sure
Oh,
to get
good.
some food.
Oh,
But
good.
I mean,
Oh, good.
she's not. It's so crazy because you
Yeah.
would think that she would be like starving to death because the
Yeah.
other ones are on her all the time.
Yeah.
But she is big. I mean, she's not like skinny. She's kind
Yeah.
of chubby, and
All right. So
she
she
gets
gets her
food.
full.
Like,
All right. All right.
she gets food, so it's kind of
Oh,
interesting.
well, good for you, Pearl. You're my favorite too, Pearl. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
She's
Right. I mean, the
she's the
fact that she
best.
stood up for her bully. That's a noble
Right.
chicken right there. That's a noble
No,
soul.
I agree.
That's a
I
noble soul.
agree.
That's really something. But yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's something. You see some of those
And it
videos where like the cats or the dogs, like you see the two cats fighting, and you see a dog come and walk in between them and break up the fight. It's the most incredible thing. Or a cat with two dogs. It's incredible. Just
right.
yeah, we tend to think animals are the same, but just like people, most people are kind of similar, but
Uh,
you do get your
that
outliers.
I kept saying that was. I mean, Axel. It was so bizarre having Axel and Tank together at the same time because they were so opposite in personality. It was just astounding.
Yeah,
And I mean, it was bizarre. It was like if anybody, and I think it's funny. A lot of people think that animals don't have like souls, like,
or
oh no, they
personality
don't.
or character.
No personality. No, they can't feel anything. Like, they don't have
Yeah,
any emotion. And I'm like, if you spend more than 2 seconds with an animal,
exactly.
you will see they have
Yeah.
absolute personalities. It's
Oh yeah.
amazing.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's just such a myth that they're all similar. Not at all. Not at
Yes,
all. Yeah. Very
absolutely.
powerful. That's really cool. This observation of it. So yeah, going
It was
forward,
no.
we look forward to more chicken tales in the context of PSP. It's very fascinating.
Yes,
It's very fascinating.
absolutely.
So yeah, yeah. Because now we're looking at inferring. Because that's what we were doing. We were inferring from that,
Mhm.
character traits. That's a powerful thing.
Right.
That's a powerful thing. Powerful thing. And it's
Absolutely.
amazing how much behavior is revealed, and they don't necessarily have all that much of a range. I mean, of things that they do. I mean, they drink, they eat, and that's it, really. And you don't have a rooster, right?
No,
Yeah. Right, right. So, what do you do with the eggs, by the way? I meant to ask you.
we eat them.
Oh, you do eat. Okay. 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 All right. Good. 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 Yeah. 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 Very good. Yeah. And they're not broody, the hens, you said.
Gertie has sort of gone broody once or twice, but not really fully, and the rest of
Right.
them have never shown
Right.
any signs of it.
Would you consider raising the chicks just for the fun of it, and then maybe giving them away? Like to to
Um,
to have Pearl bring up a bunch of chicks.
so I have thought about it. I probably wouldn't because, um, for one thing, none of them have behaved in a broody enough way. I mean, they have to like stay on the eggs for 21 days
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
actually hatch them, and none of them have shown any dedication anywhere
Wow.
close to that.
Wow.
Um,
Interesting.
but also, I, we have had multiple neighbors of ours get chicks,
Oh,
um, from various places, and somehow, I mean, even though they were trying to get all females, they would get, roosters,
mixture. Right.
and it's really hard to find anybody that will take a rooster, like, just to have as a part of their flock.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
going to
And
take
you don't
them
want to
and like
you don't want to
throw
be
them in.
putting it in the pot either.
Right, right. So, and when you're hatching eggs, you never know what you're going to get. So,
Exactly. Exactly. I,
so
I wonder if there's a science to predetermine gender ahead of time from eggs. I don't know why something is nibbling at my head to,
mm,
like, I don't know if
I
you
haven't
stand it on a thing and it falls. I don't know, some stupid trick that you could do. I don't know. I'm not
well,
sure,
I
but
haven't seen anything yet on, um, prior to them hatching, but there's a lot of breeds that are like auto-sexing. So when they hatch, you can tell instantly if it's a male or a female because of a like color pattern on their head.
Right. Okay.
But I haven't seen
Not telling
anything
from
yet.
the egg though.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I also think that I'm not sure, but I suspect that the lack of the rooster is the contributing factor to the broodiness, or the lack of.
Not necessarily.
Oh,
Not necessarily. It's typically a breed. There are some breeds that are known to be very broody. And I think it's just personality. Some people have only hens and they hatch eggs, and they have some hens that are super broody. But
interesting. I don't know. It seems like it would be a fun project, but yeah, if you can't get rid of the roosters, then you sit with them. Then
right.
That's interesting. Even people who would want to, put them in the pot don't want them.
No, they do, but I don't want that at all. 100%.
Okay.
There is no way that I can be okay with myself raising an animal and handing it over.
I hear you. No, fair enough. I hear you. Fair enough. I was just checking, not being a bit naughty.
Absolutely no way.
Yeah.
I would have made.
No, I wasn't sure what you meant, that people don't want them. Like I was just also checking both multi-purpose teasing there. All right, I was just checking though. That's interesting.
I would have made a horrible frontier person, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I doubt not, because I suspect that, if you see the necessity of it, then things will change. So, yeah, usually, people, we get sensible, and we can do, if need be, as appropriate. So our sense of appropriateness changes things. So if we don't need to, as appropriate. So yeah, I mean, I suspect you would have been appropriate or found a way around it. There's many ways to do things. So
right.
Yeah, many ways to do things. So. But you're not a frontierswoman. That's why you chose this time period, so you didn't have to do that. So. Fantastic. I've been enjoying the chicken stories. You, Beena? Before we get going, you have anything to share, Beena? To say, to ask? Anything?
Yes, it is. It is really interesting. I was listening to. I never had this much information about chickens and all this. So we had, at the time in my childhood, we had a whole family of chickens. So at our home. Okay, I was never into chickens much. But the interesting part is the theme is avoiding confrontation. It was the theme before, and as Pearl, she is able to do, but still avoids or don't want to get involved into situation, and she is quite impeccable that when she feels that it is needed, she jumps in and she can, and she shows that she can handle a situation. And it was kind of like really upfront attitude from her, which is really interesting because we were discussing before that to avoid confrontation in the play. I had an idea for myself that I feel scared of confrontation, but then
you can be what?
In discussion, I'm a bit scared of confrontation because I do feel. Yeah. So that, okay, oh, shivering in my hands and all these, oh, people are yelling and all that. But then you mentioned that Beena, it's not about confrontation itself, but it is about negative behaviors and attitudes which you avoid and feel scared of. So confrontation itself is not a thing. So same with Pearl, she is quite able to confront, but she don't want to, and she avoids that.
The motivation is lacking. Yeah.
Quite an awareness.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, her next karma jump is going to be a good one.
The what? Her next what?
Her next karma jump will be a good one.
Karma jump.
Yeah. I mean, she's like, true. She's sort of overqualified for this karma jump, as it were, So, okay, they
That's
didn't have space in the next one up. So, okay, you got to be a chicken. Who knows? Maybe she goes straight from there to being a human being. Who knows?
maybe so.
Let's assume a human is higher in the hierarchy than chicken. We don't want to take it for granted. Let's just think we don't know.
That is
We
true.
don't know. We don't know. I always wonder with all the creatures, with incarnation, is there a static number of souls? Or if not, if new souls do come into being, you're going to have a shortage at some point of recipients,
Right.
of hosts.
It's
So
true.
something to think about, So I don't know, I suspect you're sitting there out in the void somewhere and you're on the waiting list. It has to be because,
That is
if population is growing, there has to be, unless it's just a transference, as let's say there's a fixed number of souls. Okay, more humans means less other things.
right. That's
It
true.
has to be. So I don't know if it's a fixed number. Now, if it's a growing number, if both human and animal population is increasing all the time, well, then that means you can have new souls. And if there's new souls and they keep looping back, then either you've got to have an increase in population or an increase in waiting time for a host, right? So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. When we do the math, boy, I tell you, when you do the math, all sorts of interesting facts come to light. All right, brilliant. Where are we, Erica? Where are we?
Okay, so I think we left off at session 7
of module 3.
Module 3. Let's see. So, I realized while I was going over these that I haven't been specifically doing repeat backs. I've done some takeaways.
Correct.
On some of the different slides, but I haven't been doing a whole lot of repeat backs. So I thought, all right, I should add those back in. So my repeat back / takeaway for session 7, which is insecurity, was because of their deep insecurity, BSers manufacture us against you scenarios against together people to cover up their own indulgence. Together people's mere existence risks exposing the BSers' flawed justification of their BS behavior because everyone else does it.
Yes. Okay, you said to cover their own, in the first point, to cover their own indulgence, you said.
Yes.
Also insecurity.
Right.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I had something about insecurity at the beginning.
Okay.
Because of their deep insecurity.
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, sorry.
So for the let's see, I was trying to remember. I think it was session 8 that I had a whole bunch of, I think this one that was my basic takeaway. And I mean, as per usual, this was completely reminiscent of Phil.
Yes.
And his
yes.
But
PB Phil. We'll call him PB Phil from now on.
Call him what?
PB Phil, poster boy Phil.
Oh.
PB Phil.
I like it. Poster boy.
Yeah.
But this session, and especially session 8, were really interesting because I was really able to see the connectivity with cousin Bart and family on this one.
Yes.
The whole us versus you mentality is like predominant in that family. It's that is their bread and butter, I think. And so session 8 especially, I really saw connectivity with them, and that was the one that I was saying the other day that Joe and I talked about that, and he agreed that he saw that same behavior.
Interesting.
So
Interesting. So,
I
just a
was
little quick
thinking of,
aside. I'm sorry, Erica. Just a quick aside, because this was something that was of importance at one point. Just
mm-hmm,
that recognition.
right, right.
It is now a bigger factor. Okay, that's all. All right. It is starting to come and happen.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was interesting. I mean, he didn't volunteer that, right? You know, he didn't say, I think
Gotcha.
my family does this.
Gotcha.
I said, you know, I really feel like this is something that your family does. And I said, you know, do you agree? And he's like, oh no, 100%. They do this all the time. And, you know, my brother does this a lot. Um, so he, you know, it wasn't something that he necessarily volunteered, but he did agree with it and didn't have any um, like negative reaction or didn't seem to cause him any stress or anything, admitting that this
Excellent.
was the case.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, and that's
Um,
likely, in the way of things. So that's very good. Very good.
right, right. So the exercise on this one was, oops, go away. Darn it, I keep getting all these things popping up on my screen and I can't see what's happening. So every time I start to read something, I get some kind of notification. Okay, it says, without making notes or looking at notes, prepare a verbal explanation of why BMNs and BSers tend to have an us against them mindset. Provide at least 3 main reasons, causes, or pressures. So, I mean, like I said, in this case, this and especially the next session really reminded me of that entire family, really. I mean, there are a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, the entire family. And I think one of the things that I said to Joe was this kind of attitude and behavior. I said, you know, I have seen this for a long time and sort of suspected that this was the cause, and reading this session and the next one were really interesting for me in kind of a confirmation of why this behavior would be happening. But I saw, I mean, regularly, ever since Joe and I got together, now I think the only person that I have not partake in this kind of behavior is Joe's mom. But every other member of the family, they will tease, and not even, I mean, it's not teasing. It's like, it really is just bullying. I think it's poorly masked as teasing, but it's not teasing. They will bring up, you know, they'll bring up any memory that they can of something that he's done that they thought was stupid, or something
Joe is done.
Or something embarrassing that he's done, or you know, I mean, they just pull whatever they can. Or if they're in a conversation and he doesn't agree with something that somebody said, or I mean, whatever it is, one of them will pounce on him, and the rest of them just all pile in, and you know, I mean, they just kind of relentlessly pick on him. And I had always thought, I mean, I remember thinking this a long time ago, that I think, you know, he does not ever participate. They have all of these kind of family bonding activities that are all centered around BS stuff. They, you know, they like judge people all together as a pack. I mean, I don't know. They just, all of it seems like to me that all of their family bonding activity is somehow related to hierarchical superiority nonsense. And Joe, does not typically participate in any of that kind of behavior.
Good for you, Joe. Good for you, Joe.
I have suspected for a long time that I think the reason that his family picks on him is because they know that he's different, and that he is they know that he doesn't
Yes.
participate in this stuff, and so they're like threatened by the fact that he
Yes,
is
exactly.
not participating
Exactly.
in this stuff. So they all pile on and start, bullying him and doing all of this stuff because they're like, oh, yikes, he's a better person than we are. We have to remind him of his place and, whatever. So reading this session, it was really interesting that, kind of walking through, and that may have been part of the next session as well. I think it was, but just the explanation behind a lot of that us versus them behavior, that, it's, I see that you are better than me, that you are taking the high road and proving that the high road can be taken. And so I have to pull you down and, try to make you think that you're a lesser person than me.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, and that was one of the
it's a
big
profound
points to me
lameness, but that doesn't
right.
stop people,
right.
from being lame, that it is lame.
Right. And that was one of the main points for me from this session was that's why.
There's you're touching on it, but say again. Sorry.
Oh, just that's one of the reasons why they tend to do that is someone not participating in their typical behavior
Right.
proves that's an option.
Yeah.
And their argument is this is, there is no option. This is
Correct.
the only way to be.
Yeah.
This is justified, and I can get ahead this way.
Yeah, they don't know any better,
they
in other words.
threatened.
Yeah, it's dreadful. It's sad. But anyway,
Maybe,
there's
I mean, I feel like I feel like probably, I mean, certainly in the case of BMNs, they do know better, but they have been indulgent in justifying their behavior. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, they get the payoff for it, and they relish in it, and they delight in it, and whatever. So, they do choose. There is a session or chapter later on where it gets into more detail about more specific mechanisms as to why. So, cool. So it's more coming. So just keep it in mind as you go along. When you see this is why they're doing it. Don't fall into the trap of assuming it's the only reason why they do it.
Right.
There's multiple.
Right.
Yeah, multiple.
One of the other things that I had been thinking about was specifically about why a lot of times it's not just like me versus you, kind of a one-to-one thing, but it's like really an us versus you kind of a thing. Is that it justifies, in their mind, justifies their rightness. Look, other people agree with me.
Yes, nice, Erica. Nice, sophisticated perception. Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Yeah. They need that because inherently they know that the position they are taking is actually unjustifiable. They know it. That's why they need that justification. They know it's crappy.
Right.
Erica, this behavior of your in-laws is from the beginning, like with Joe, or is it a bit more happening now after you guys get together?
I don't know. Joe doesn't really talk about it a whole lot, so I don't think that it is new because of our relationship. I think it's something that happened prior to me coming into the equation, and I think for sure, given what I suspect the reason is, that they see that he is different from them. I think it's always been that way.
Okay. Then it's a different thing. But if they are doing that after this thing, then it might be a different perspective to that. So,
right.
You and Joe being with you, and your happy marriage, and you being you, This is clear confirmation that Joe is different. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I would imagine that there have been some comments. Oh, Joe really got lucky or stuff like that. Yeah, that this is part of their regular comments or not?
About from them? No, they don't like me at all. I'm sure
Ah,
they think that I made like the worst mistake in the world. They are not
that's
fans
interesting.
of me at all.
But I'm not talking about them liking you, but in terms of like Joe succeeding in a way and getting something of value. They don't say that.
Well, but that's what I mean. I don't think they see me as a thing of value at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's I feel that it's a different thing because they want to make Erica because BMNs, if they are,
yeah.
we are assuming that okay, if they are like that, they have a particular quality. They judge people, they analyze people really quick and like deeply and thoroughly because they are insecure in themselves. So
Right.
Wow.
they see everyone as a potential threat. Their
Wow.
hierarchy, and I suspect that they did gauge you like quite perfectly in detail. Okay, what are the triggers for you, and where you feel insecure, and where you actually like it, and what you don't like it, all sort of things. And then that's why I was asking that. Okay, is it particular uh, to after your marriage or thing? Because I feel that it is more geared towards you than Joe.
Well,
So,
yeah,
Oh,
I
it's
don't
written
know. I
by
mean,
you.
there's certainly, I think there are certainly aspects of that, but from what I understand, the behavior of them bullying him and sort of picking on him
It won't be new.
was happening before I
Oh yeah, they're not
came.
going to just suddenly
From the
start
little bit
doing that. Yeah.
right from the little bits that Joe has talked about, that was happening before me. But I mean, I think I talked about this before that to my face, they have never, like in front of me, certainly they have never said anything about, you know, we don't like her, we wish you hadn't married her. They've never said anything
Wow.
like that.
Wow.
But when I am around, they regularly, I mean, it's interesting. They're very smart about the way that they say things. And
Yeah.
I have never heard I've never heard any member of their family say directly that they don't like the other spouses of the other children in the family. You know, I've never heard them say like, I don't like this person or I wish they weren't
Wow.
married. But they relentlessly nitpick, judge, and make fun of the other two spouses of Joe's sister and his brother, who are, I think, incredibly nice, very sweet people. And to be quite honest, I'm kind of shocked that either one of his siblings managed to find people who were that nice. And, you know, given their own personalities, it kind of is amazing to me.
Wow.
And I'm not sure, I have never heard a direct, you know, they're horrible, I don't like them. But I also don't think, I cannot think of a single instance where I have heard a positive thing being said
Wow.
about the spouse,
Wow.
right? There might
Wow.
be like, oh, Chris and Angela are doing blah blah blah, and we think that's great. But I don't think I've ever heard like
Yeah.
Angela
Yeah.
is really good at this, and we think that's so awesome. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe,
That's amazing. Wow.
Joe's sister's husband's name is also Joe, and I have
Oh wow.
never heard them say a single good thing about
Wow.
him ever.
Wow. 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 That's really,
So
really, really impressive. Yeah.
I am positive that that behavior does not disclude me, right? I'm certain that they
Yeah.
do the same kind of thing when I'm not around.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And so, who are the group that you're talking about now? These are his cousins or who? It's not his brother
No,
and his
no,
sister.
his yes, yeah. I mean, his brother, his sister, his mom, and his dad. And they will, I mean, they don't talk crap on the spouse in front of, you know, like if they were talking badly about Joe, the husband of Joe's sister, they would not say that in front of Joe's sister, but they would say it in front of his brother.
Yeah, I was just saying who the they were, you know, that's all it was. Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all of them. It's all of them.
Oh, okay. There are no cousins involved. It's mom, dad, and then his sister, his brother, and their spouses. Right? Okay.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to see who the group was, because we said cousin Bart, so I guess that stuck in my mind as cousin Bart, but it's brother, sister, father, mother. Okay.
Immediate family.
Yeah, immediate family. Wow, that's very interesting that they are so, you know, like that towards Joe. Being immediate family for those cousins, but it's not entirely surprising, you know. People are threatened like that. It's primitive logic, you know.
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because, you know, it doesn't really surprise me that they do that. I mean, it would not surprise me if they did that to each other all the time, because that's just kind of their personality. But
like chickens,
I think that's why it stood out to me in particular that they were doing it to Joe, because despite the fact that it would make sense for them to do it all to each other, they don't. I very rarely hear them go after each other. That's a very rare occurrence. But they go after Joe and the spouses all the time.
Yeah. So would like the sister go, if she's in the group with the father, the mother, the brother, would she participate in going after her husband?
Not typically. It kind of depends on what it's about, but generally speaking, no. And I actually had a conversation with her, one of the rare times where she was actually being like sociable and trying to interact with me. I had lunch with her, and she confided in me that she was very frustrated that it's so bizarre to me. Like, I forget that they don't typically talk badly about the person's spouse in front of that person. So as far as that person is concerned, they don't necessarily have any idea that the rest of the family doesn't like their spouse. Because to me, it's like, I have no doubt in my mind that they don't like Joe, Elizabeth's husband. You know, like, there's no doubt in my mind that they don't like him, because they talk about him badly all the time. But for her, that's just a guess, because she's never actually gotten confirmation that they don't like him.
Right.
So she was confiding at lunch one day about how she suspected that they felt like Joe was not like equally contributing when it came to the kids, and that he wasn't like doing his part. And she said, you know, I feel like they think that, you know, and they've never said anything to me, but I feel like that's what they think. And I said, yeah, are you kidding me? Like, they talk about that all the time. I mean, that's a given. And she was like, I knew it. You know, I knew that they do that.
Wow.
So it's very rare that they
Interesting.
that in front of the spouse.
So real quick, what does the mother, the father, the brother, the sister do?
What do they do in terms of like
occupation
work
wise?
Or
occupation wise,
occupation. So his mom has been retired for a really long time. Prior to that, I think she was like an administrative assistant or something similar. I can't remember. Like, way prior to that, she was a waitress, and I think she was a waitress. After that, I think she did some kind of office work. It was something like admin assistant. And then she got
in other words,
off
it's just in modern lingo. Back then, she would have been a secretary.
I'm not sure if she actually was a secretary or but it was something sort of similar. She wasn't, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely
matter.
sure what it was.
It's more or less. It's more or less. Yeah.
She's been retired for a long time. His dad was a CIO for a very long time. And I think I told you guys that he had a very strong reputation at all of the places where he worked. There were very few people that were a fan of working for him. He was, I think, very dictatorial. He kind of garnered a reputation for being brought into a company to kind of slash, like if a company was not doing particularly well, from a budget perspective or whatever, he would come in, fire a ton of people, cut a bunch of programs because no one else wanted to do that, right? And he doesn't care if he's being an asshole. He does not care.
So CIO in this case is for? You said CIO.
Chief Information Officer.
Information. Okay, I was
Chief
just checking.
Information Officer.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Wow.
So he did that at multiple different places for a long time.
Interesting. So he was the hatchet man, in other words. He was known to be, that's what they called him, the hatchet man. Okay.
Pretty much, yeah. His brother was working in marketing, but he got laid off like 2.5 years ago at this point, and they live in Detroit, and his wife's family lives there, and she refuses to move anywhere else. And basically the only major companies that hire in marketing where they are auto companies.
Yeah.
And so he got laid off a couple of years ago. The auto companies were not doing well, and they're still not. It's a very competitive industry because there's not that many to choose from. So he still does not have a job. His wife does something really similar. I think she was actually his intern. That was how they met. But Joe's sister.
Now he's saying a lot. So for the last 2.5 years, the wife has been the one who's been bringing the income. Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. All right.
Yep.
It's not in the BMN logic. That's not an uncommon thing to take advantage like that. BMNs, they do this regularly.
Right. That has been a topic of conversation. It's so fascinating, their family dynamic. I have heard so they're very private people, right? They typically don't share pretty much anything with each other. It's very rare
outsiders, right?
Even to themselves, like even within the family, it's very rare that they share because they feel like everything is personal and it's not anyone else's business, So it's kind of rare that you hear all of the details of things that are going on. But from what I understand, for the last 2 years, Joe's parents have been supporting his brother and his brother's family financially. The wife is bringing in money, but not enough money to cover all of their stuff. So Joe's family has been financially supporting them. And personally, I keep thinking, if that were me, I would feel. I would be very grateful that someone was helping me, but if that were the case, that would be just further motivation for me to go out and do anything. Like, it doesn't matter to me what I'm doing. I would be getting some kind of a job.
And this is the difference between you and the BMN.
Right. Well, it's fascinating to me. I sit back and I watch this, and they are not bothered by taking this money at all. They're not bothered at all.
No.
And that's like really fascinating to me. But what I find really interesting is that at the same token, Joe's brother and his wife, who I have both heard say similar things, who are, taking money from Joe's parents, complain regularly about how Joe's sister and her husband are taking advantage of their parents because she and her husband have 3 kids that are all like a major handful. They both work, and so they need help with the kids. And Joe's parents regularly go up to Boston and stay with them and help them take care of the kids.
Wow.
And it's like they're always mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. So Joe's brother and his wife will constantly complain about how the sister and her husband are taking advantage of Joe's parents because of the kids and all this stuff. And all the while, they are continuing to take money. I'm like, how does this work? It's really bizarre. The dynamic between all of them is really strange.
Right. So Donna was having this problem. Just in terms of, inter-office, just people like asking questions to which they already know the answer for some sort of hierarchy nonsense purpose. And then, when I kind of laid out why, just stupid stuff, right? I mean, there's all lots of reasons for it, but the end result of it was essentially that it's BS and it's preposterous. And Donna was trying to make sense of it. And sometimes the making sense is that it doesn't make sense.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. That's how you make sense of it. They do stupid, illogical, and irrational things. They are these square circles. They really are mucking fuddles. I mean, sorry, but there's just no other better description for it. This is important to understand, that there are these square circle psychologies. That on the one hand, they'll do something like this, and they have these aspects, and they can be completely self-contradictory. And their whole psychologies are in this way. And it's very, very important to understand. It's a very, very powerful thing. So, yeah. Yeah, they can be quite crazy. They can be quite crazy.
Yeah. Beena, to your point about some of his family's behavior being kind of specific to me, like their behavior toward Joe being specific to me, I did definitely feel that way in a particular aspect. his his family, when we so I even beginning to think about how to describe this is just a mess. But when we first got together, his family had a very particular way of doing things, right? He lived right around the corner from them. He went to dinner with them like 5 days a week.
Wow.
They had a very particular routine. Yeah. Wow. They had a very particular routine. They were very used to things happening the way that they were expecting them to happen. And when I came along, his parents specifically, were so, just their behavior toward me was so bizarre and unlike anything I had ever experienced. I told Joe very quickly, I am really uncomfortable spending this much time with your parents. It was bizarre. I mean, I think I told you that his dad didn't look me, maybe I didn't. His dad would not look me in the eye for at least a month when we first met. Literally, like I'm not even exaggerating. Would not, and actually, for the first month, not only would he not look me in the eye, he refused to acknowledge me, period. So we would go out to dinner. They would be having this conversation. I would interject, and his dad, if I ever like directed a question or a comment or something to his dad would literally act like nothing had happened. He would not look at me. He would ignore what I said. Nothing. And then finally, after about a month, I think it was probably about a month, he started at least acknowledging my presence, but he still wouldn't look me in the eye. So he would, if I would direct some comment or question toward him, he would answer. So he would at least acknowledge that I had said something, but he would say it and look at Joe.
Wow.
So he would answer, but would not look at me.
Wow.
He would say it to Joe.
Wow.
And then, you know, after I'm not sure how much time, he finally got to the place where he would actually look me in the eye. And, you know, and then his mom, who now is very sweet to me, has dropped a lot of the really bizarre behavior, but when we first got together was incredibly conniving, very sneaky, undercover, like backstabbing. She would make the most bizarre comments that I would like go home and dissect and try to understand what she was trying to say to me, because I knew it wasn't just, you know, it was really bizarre. So I told him, you know, after the first like month that we were together, I said, I'm incredibly uncomfortable around your family, and I would really prefer not to go to dinner with them 5 nights a week.
And what happened?
So
what happened? What did he say?
He told them, he went out to dinner with them by himself, and he said, you know, hey, and he didn't put it on me, which I appreciate, but he said, you know, look, I mean, at the time he was like 29, you know, he's like, I'm 29 years old. I live in my own house. I have my own life. Like, I think maybe it's time that we start scaling this back a little bit. And I'm not sure what his dad said, but his mom was very upset and actually made a comment to him along the lines of, are you breaking up with me? Okay.
Oh, that's a that is, but that is absolutely something that's a BMN mom thing. They have this, they have inappropriate connections to their sons. It's unreal. It's unreal.
Right. I mean,
Idiotic.
it was like the biggest like Oedipus complex thing. I was like, what is happening? Like, what I think that was actually one of the really good examples of Joe told me this, right?
Wow.
But it wasn't, I said, how did it go? And he was like, oh, you know, I think my mom was kind of upset, and she said like, oh, you know, are you breaking up with me? Like, whatever. And I told her like, no, you know, of course not. And I mean, he's just saying this in a very like jovial way. And I am like, she said what? You know, she said what? And he's like, what? I mean, he did not, he did not see that as an issue.
But to Joe's credit,
so,
he broke that cycle, and this is no small thing.
He did.
This is a huge deal.
He did. But ever since that kind of transpired, of course, you know, I knew that his mom and dad were talking to his siblings and complaining, and I was sure that they were blaming it on me, and, you know, oh, his horrible girlfriend like doesn't want us to see him anymore. And so his brother and sister, every chance they got, would text him and basically berate him for not spending enough time with his family.
And how much did they spend with their family?
Oh, right. At the time, like none. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, at the time, basically none.
It's like, seriously, people, come on.
Right. So they would, you know, text, like, you're being a horrible son, you know, you need to go over and see your parents or whatever. And so then things got really interesting, because once, I mean, I think his family was sort of shocked that Joe actually like said, you know, look, this is enough, you know, we need to like slow down a little bit. And as we spent more time with them, and they continued to do more and more really bizarre things toward me, and, you know, Joe wouldn't see it as bad until I pointed it out, but once I pointed it out, he would typically take some kind of action on it. You know, the next time he was with his parents, he would say, you know, look, Erica's really uncomfortable, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
And so
that's difficult to do, Erica.
that
That's very difficult to do. So, hey, full props to Joe.
I really appreciated him, you know, taking those steps. But because of that, they started, you know, I think it was so fascinating. They, you know, they knew obviously that a lot of this changing dynamic with him was because of me.
Yeah.
And so they started trying to basically buy me off.
Oh.
And it was really bizarre because I have never experienced anything like this before.
Wow.
But
wow, what a story.
I have, it's so bizarre. There are so many completely bizarre things that I have experienced with his family. It's unreal.
Wow.
But I haven't ever seen them do this.
I need to interject one point here. Beena, just you see now why Erica is Erica empowered? Or I'm trying to make the point for Erica really. You see, Erica, why we call you Erica empowered? You stuck it out. You didn't let the stuff pull you down. Really, you know, you kept going. You maintained the thing. I mean, many people would have said, "Oh, no, you and your," they would have left Joe in a heartbeat to say, "Oh no, sorry, I'm not part of this nonsense."
I know,
you know?
and I'm tempted to remind him of that sometimes. Just remember, Joe, that most people would not still be here with you.
And if you need a second opinion, you're welcome to go to say, well, if you don't believe me, go ask Sil and Beena. They're the ones who brought this up.
Right. Yes.
So you're welcome to put it on us. I'll be quite happy to tell Joe just exactly how marvelously lucky the two of you are to have each other.
It is so typical. Yeah, this is so typical example of well sophisticated, weaved family hierarchy, clan or something like that, which is like they do every possible thing to maintain their things, like their clan. And that's why I've had a feeling, and still I feel that that they understand you and they understand Joe, of course, but they know that where they can push buttons and where they can trigger you. So they are doing that indirectly also. Yeah, like of course they're not in much communication now, but they have a strategy, and this is something really amazing. That by doing that, they know that you will not tolerate. It is something that totally impossible for you to understand. So they are pushing you to come out of that composed behavior.
Right.
So they can say, okay, see what is happening. Now she is just interfering in the family and all these things. So it is like by implication.
They want to make you less.
Getting results.
That was what was so interesting to me. You know, the whole, like, with them trying to kind of buy me off.
Yeah, how did that happen?
So
I want to know.
Fascinating. So because, you know, I think in the beginning they were really pushing. I mean, to me, it was obvious that they were trying to run me off. You know, for quite some time at the beginning of our relationship, they were doing everything they could to get me to go away. And when I didn't go away, they switched tactics. So they started, I mean, and I think this is kind of his dad's MO. I mean, this is just what his dad is used to. If he has a problem, throw money at it, and eventually, you know, it'll be fixed. That worked with Joe's sister-in-law, so Joe's brother's wife. She is a very sweet person, but she is very monetarily focused. She likes a lot of really fancy things. She's very drawn in by money. So there were several examples to me of where they had essentially bought her favor. And it was so interesting because they, you know, I mean, and I think I actually had a conversation with Angela at one point about all of this, but she confirmed with me that she was very uncomfortable, or for a long time was very uncomfortable around Joe's family as well. Because I kept thinking, you know, am I the only one that thinks that all of this is really bizarre? And she had said, you know, no, I was really, really uncomfortable around them in the beginning as well. And so I think that essentially when she came in and, you know, the balance of the family changed, basically Joe's parents kind of bought her complacency. You know, it was like, all right, like you agree to be lower than me at the bottom of the pack because I'm going to give you stuff. You know, I'll give you stuff, and that means that you are in debt to me. You are below me. And so she took it, right? And it was like, okay, this is fine. And things kind of smoothed out, and things got better. I don't know what happened with
set things up for the monetary situation now.
Right. I don't know what happened with Joe's brother-in-law. He has been in the picture for a long time, so I'm not sure what they did there. But I mean, Joe's dad, I think that's just typical for Joe's dad. He has a lot of money, and he throws it at people. You know, if something isn't going his way, he throws some money at it and it fixes it. And so they started, you know, it kind of toward the beginning of our relationship when I wasn't leaving, they started trying to get us to go on family vacation, like all paid family vacations. You know, oh look, we can go here and we can do this. And I kept saying, and you know, it was very typical for them to go on family vacations at least once a year. The parents paid for everything. The spouses would come, you know, everybody would go do whatever. And at this point, they were not spending as much time with Joe because of me. So their goal was to, you know, get him back into the fold.
Were you married already or not yet?
No.
Not yet.
So, for instance, at one point, they offered up all expenses paid trip to Hawaii.
Oh.
And they're like, oh, you know, we're going to Hawaii. Just let us know when you guys are coming and whatever. And I said, no, we're not going. And I said, you know, Joe, you can go if you want to, but I am not sitting on a plane for 8 hours with
Erica empowered. Erica empowered. Yes.
On the island with these people, I'm not doing it. I don't care where we're going. I am not doing that. And so he said, no, we're not joining. And they were livid. I mean, he got so many texts from his brother and sister. Why are you not there? And I said, sorry, nope, you know, we're not doing that. And they offered, I can't even remember now, but there were multiple things where they kept offering to like pay for things for us. And I said, no. I mean, Joe, to his credit, came and talked to me about it first. And I said, this is a ploy. I mean, this, to me, this is so obviously being done as a way to exercise dominance. Like this is forcing us to be in debt to them. You know, like this is a way of exercising control.
No.
And I said, you know, how if they pay for this trip, for instance, you know, if they pay for this trip, we go to Hawaii, they are now going to feel entitled to treat me however the hell they want to.
Yeah.
Because what kind of person would I be to stand up and say you're being mean to me when they've just paid for my vacation to Hawaii? You know, This is like a get out of jail free card for them. They can treat me however they want.
Good for you, Erica. Good for you. Now, whoa. So excuse me. Point of order here. Objection, Your Honor. Objection. Defendant claims to avoid confrontation and not like confrontation.
So I don't like direct confrontation. I never confronted them about this in person, right? This was all kind of like Joe and I would talk, and you know, he would text them and whatever. So I'm still challenged with direct confrontation. But you know, they kept trying to pay for all these things, and then eventually we got engaged. His family, both of our families, were horrible about the wedding. I mean, I knew there was going to be some challenge, but oh my gosh. I mean, we had this idea of what we wanted to do for our wedding, and both of our families were like, no, you know, no, it can't be. No, you don't want to do that. No, that's not good enough. What about this? What about that? And so his family had all these rules about all these people that were going to be invited and how we had to do this and that and da 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 da. And then his dad decided that our reception was going to turn into a Parker family reunion, basically. And they were like taking over our reception and turning it into this other thing. And I was putting up a fight on that.
Much of
Didn't
a
want to do that.
of a I don't know what your maiden name is. Beale, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's not much of a Beale family to counterbalance it. It's not like you can bring the whole Beale clan
there
in,
was
right?
literally the only family. I mean, at this point, right during our wedding planning was when Mom and Phil started the divorce process.
Right.
And so he was going to walk me down the aisle, and then he picked a fight with me a week before our wedding. And it was so asinine that was the point that I finally said, I'm not speaking to you anymore. Yes. And so he didn't show up. He didn't show up to the wedding at all.
Oh,
so at that point, my family was literally my mom and my grandma.
Yeah.
That was it. Joe had like 300 people coming from his family. It was like crazy. But
you feel your own power here, right?
Well, I do. I mean, his family started, nitpicking on everything to do with the wedding. And then, of course, they wanted to pay for all these different things with the wedding. And I was like, no, I am not comfortable with this. And I said, first of all, that's not tradition, right? It's the bride's family that pays for the wedding. So you can't argue. No, I mean, seriously, because I could see how they would argue.
Yeah.
Oh, this is tradition. I'm like, this isn't even tradition, this is stupid. And they're like, oh, no, we have all this money, we can pay for all of blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, first of all, I don't want some big fancy crazy thing. Second of all, I don't want them. I mean, they were fighting every step of the way to get control over what was happening in the wedding. And I'm like, no, that's why they want to pay for this, because then they can say, we paid for it, so we're doing whatever we want. And so I kept saying, nope, nope, we are not doing this. We are paying for the wedding ourselves. This is what we're doing. We're going to work this out. And then my grandma got sick and everything changed. We scrapped the entire wedding, started over. We moved the date up, and just everything changed at that point. We were focusing on my grandma getting better and planning around her surgery date. And we were really concerned. She needed to have surgery as quickly as possible. And we were really concerned that there was a high likelihood that she may not survive the surgery. Wow. And since I literally only had 2 family members that were going to be at the wedding, we said, this is really important that she be there. So we moved the date up to a week prior to her surgery. Wow. And with that happening, it completely changed the priority of everything. And I said, honestly, my priority is getting to the place where I can make sure that my grandma is okay. So as long as we get married, and we're able to do this together, none of the rest of it matters. So we ended up, his mom, at that point, I finally conceded. I said, you know what? Fighting over the money and all this stuff is not worth it. It's not that important to me. I give up, I give in. You guys do what you want to do. And so we got married in his parents' backyard. And basically, I got my dress, and I picked out the cake that I wanted, and one of my best friends brought that cake from Oklahoma City. But all of the rest of it, I just showed up.
Nice.
I had no idea what I was getting into.
Nice.
And his mom,
Nice. I say nice because in the way in which you did it, with the resistance, and then with your grandma said, "Okay, you do it," it unhooked you from any obligation, right?
Right.
So
Right.
the way in which you did it was ideal. It's very cool. Excellent.
Right. Right. So yeah, his mom planned basically everything. She got all the flowers together. She figured out where we were going to go eat. She got everything set up, which is what she had wanted to do the whole time, right? She wanted to have all of this involvement. And so after that point, she has treated me totally differently.
Wow.
She
So it had a bonus. It had a bonus consequence then.
It did. So
wow.
Somehow her getting her way on this thing like changed the dynamic. Wow. And so she has treated me completely differently.
Fascinating. Fascinating. But good for you to stick with your guns. I think your your mother-in-law realized that you're not a pushover, and that but at the same time you're kind of not unreasonable either. So I would have liked to say, hey, you want to spend all this money, spend it on my grandma instead of the wedding.
Right.
I'd rather see you spend it on grandma.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, and that is one of the other things that really rubbed me the wrong way with this whole process, was that, to me, I mean, I don't have a ton of money. It's hard for me to really say what I would do if I were in their circumstance. But for me, if I were in that position, I would divide up, if I have 3 kids and I am reasonably expecting that I am going to have more money than all of my kids' spouses' family, like I'm probably going to have more money than the rest of them. And so, I feel like I should contribute to the weddings of all of them. I would set aside money equally for all 3 of those kids and say, you know what? You can use this on whatever you want. I'm giving you this amount of money. You can use it on the wedding. You can use it on the honeymoon. You can use it to put a down payment on the house. I don't care. Here is your money. Here you go. But of course, that's not what they do. What they do is basically you get an unlimited amount of money as long as you do what you basically have to beg for it. As long as you beg for it, or you do what they want you to do in return, you get as much money as you want. So, his family spent like $50,000 at least on his brother's wedding.
Wow.
Just the wedding, right? Nothing else, just the wedding.
Wow.
And, there was no, it's just the reason that they got that much money was because
to be
his brother's his brother's wife said, sure, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just give me the money so that I can put this on my wedding.
Why?
And that was her choice. I don't fault her for that. But I was like, no, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing that. So it was an interesting experience. But all of that to say that, to Beena's point, I definitely saw in that particular instance how his family was treating him in a specific way because of me being involved.
Wow. Very, very fascinating. BMNs do the most ridiculous things. Just a little story on this, very similar for the subservience thing. My father's one of 7 children, and his father wasn't, I guess in the time, they weren't wealthy. They lived in a relatively kind of lower middle class, about as low as you can go in white South Africa, a neighborhood. But his father owned lots of property, so he had lots of assets, but they didn't really live up to cash. I think his father was just very stingy. Anyway, they lived in the same house, for ages. I think my father was born there and he grew up and all this. So anyway, but he had considerable assets at the time of his death, and he said to the kids, he said, look, I forget the exact wording, because it came via my mother, the story, but essentially he said to them that the one who's going to be the nicest to me and kiss up to me the most is going to inherit everything.
Right.
And
Right.
that was that was my father. He was the only one, and he was a terrible guy. I mean, he was just a real horror, and he just made none of the rest would do it, and he made my father do all sorts of grovel and do all sorts of horrible things, and my father did it, and he inherited everything, every single thing. Even his wife got nothing. When my father inherited the wife, the house that he grew up in, that he was born in, that where his mother had lived all her married life. She ended up paying rent to my father.
You're kidding.
Nope.
Wow. That
So,
is unbelievable.
yeah,
Wow.
bizarre. Yeah. Anyway, so
Really bizarre.
yeah. And I mean,
Yeah,
she worked as a all the time that I knew her, she worked in a department store, with at a perfume counter,
Yeah.
And I mean, the house
It
was a
is
big house, and the one across the street was rented. My father had rental. There was no reason for her to work, She could have rented out part of her house, whatever.
right.
It's
It's
just
just
how that
such a fascinating.
BMN logic and the hierarchy, So
Yeah, it's just so fascinating. I mean, I had a really different familial experience because I had no siblings. My mom didn't have any siblings by the time I came along. My grandma didn't have any siblings, so we didn't have a lot of the same dynamic. But it just seems so bizarre to me for that to be that kind of dynamic
Oh,
to
it
be
is
in
bizarre. It is bizarre.
of like hitting each other, like, oh, whichever one of you. I mean, it's all about
Oh,
control,
it's beyond
whichever
exactly. It's beyond bizarre, but
does what
it's
I'm going to do the
this
most, then
is
I'm going to give you all this stuff. It's just that is bizarre to me.
yeah. Oh, it's BMN behavior to the hilt. I mean, really maximized. And of course, my
Right.
father's, he's J.R. Ewing, same guy. So
Right.
yeah,
It's so bizarre. Really, really bizarre. But
fascinating. But
anyway,
I'm
so
impressed with you, Erica Jane, and I want you to appreciate yourself through all of this. And Joe too. I mean,
well,
yeah, the fact that you guys, you kind of stuck to your guns, that they didn't get in the way of your relationship, that you have a strong, healthy, wonderful, magical relationship. Yes, I'm sure there are some, peaks and then slightly less peaks, but okay, still you have a fantastic
right.
relationship, right?
I am really grateful that I think one of the things that is most amazing to me is that Joe, for such a long time, I think Joe wasn't necessarily that he didn't believe me
It was
that
just a
these
bit,
things that his family were harmful, but he just didn't see it himself. And so
correct.
it's really impressive to me that even though that was the case for him, he still acted on
Correct.
the feelings and things that I had. I was saying this is really bothering
Oh,
me, and
that's what
he
I
didn't really see it as bothersome, but he went ahead and addressed it anyway.
Yeah, psychologically,
So
what Joe did was really, really huge. Very,
yes,
very difficult to do, massive to go against such ingrained habituation.
right.
It's very difficult. A nice word here is that you become inured to things,
Mm-hmm.
not immune or ignorant, but inured. In other words, you're just so used to it that you don't really notice it, you don't feel it, you don't perceive it, it doesn't stick out in your awareness. And when you become aware, it's inured like that, it's very difficult to act against it. So
Right.
it is very, very difficult. So this takes a real, strength of character to do. And it's
I
very
agree.
difficult when you're entrenched like that. And like the mom said, oh, you bring that's very rare and very, very unusual. So okay. And then that's the moment that Joe won his freedom, really. Not that he didn't have it, but it's inadvertently you just have this momentum going, and you don't break that
Right.
momentum. Oh man, you're gonna be in there in those clutches forever. So I'm assuming now you don't. There's not. It's infrequent, the interactions with the parents.
They certainly are right now because of the virus. Prior to that, since coming back to Tulsa, we were typically spending time with him at least once a month.
Okay.
So, and
Where are they? Where are they?
Things have settled. Where are they, like, geographically?
Uh-huh.
They're in Tulsa.
Oh. So once a month then. All right, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So his really everybody in the family has sort of settled into things have calmed down. Things have calmed down a lot since we got married. There's still all kinds of nonsense behavior, but it's not as in your face as it was before. But his sister, I have continued to have the most friction with, because she is off the charts BMN type behavior. But she has surprised me over the last probably year or so. She's come around a lot, and she's an interesting character because there are aspects of her personality that she does things that only really good people do. And you kind of stop and go, but then at the same time she exhibits all this other like complete opposite behavior. So it's very interesting.
Fascinating.
She's a very interesting case. But it has gotten
what if she's a reluctant BMN just because she needs to do it for the family to fit in and all that, or what the deal is? But anyway, yeah.
But she is by far the most private person in the family, so it's really hard to know what's going on with her because she doesn't share hardly anything. But I don't know. It's hard to say, but she's an interesting character.
Wow.
So okay, what have we? Oh shoot, it's already 3:40. Okay, so
we got distracted, but it's powerful though because no, I'm pleased it's all out because now, besides Phil, we have these other, well, at least 4, but potentially 6. Well, you said the spouses are kind of nice, so we have these other 4 players which are very, they are directly in, this direct communication, and they are pertinent, they are relevant. So it's good to understand them, and particularly in this context with the group dynamics thing, it's very important to understand, and it's very useful. So, and it's fascinating that, I mean, beside your mom, you're essentially surrounded by BMNs. It's amazing,
It's true.
Wow, you needed to learn all this stuff. You needed to learn it, obviously. So.
Apparently
it's fascinating. One thing I'm really happy with is that Phil wasn't at the wedding. That makes me very happy.
Phil what?
Phil was not at the wedding and did not give you away. Oh, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I mean, and that he didn't give you away, right? It makes me very happy. It makes me very
happy. Yeah, that whole thing, that was another. He was very particular about what he wanted to have happen with the wedding, and I was very reluctant to give in to what he wanted because
it's your wedding, for Christ's sake.
Well, I mean, for sure that was part of it, but a big part of it was he was notorious for giving you something or promising you something.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you did something that he didn't like, he would completely take it away, reverse it, whatever. And so he kept trying to, like, he wanted us to get married at their house. So they lived out on 12 acres. He wanted us to get married in their backyard. And I was like, absolutely not. Because with past history, all it's going to take is us doing one thing to piss him off, and then he's not going to let us to have our wedding. And I mean, the whole thing is
you just gave him leverage, and you didn't want to give him leverage, right?
So I had, there had already been a lot of unpleasant things going on with him and the wedding anyway. And then, you know, when we got in the big discussion right before the wedding, and he started, I think I told you all that story. That was the craziest thing. My grandma, I mean, I know exactly why he did it, but my grandma was getting ready to have her surgery. It was a week before the wedding, and I was flying. At the time, Joe and I were living in Pittsburgh, and I was flying back Joe and I came back to Oklahoma in preparation for the wedding. And, you know, I had come back a week early to get things started, to get my grandma kind of situated and everything. And, you know, I had my grandma's surgery coming up and my own wedding. Those two were obviously kind of taking top priority of what was happening in my life at the given time. But at the same time, my mom and Phil were kind of starting to go through the process of divorce. And leading up to this point, Phil had said numerous times something along the lines of, I really want us to still have a relationship outside of your mom. You know, even though we're getting a divorce, I really want you and me to have a relationship. And I was like, okay, you know, that's fine. And he kept pressing this point, and the way that he was saying it told me that he didn't think that that was going to happen. And he had like made up in his mind that this wasn't going to happen. And so he kept repeatedly saying like, oh, I really wish that this would happen. And I'm like, okay. And he just kept pressing this. And from experience, I knew that with Phil, whenever he had made up his mind that something was going to happen or that this was the way it was, it did not matter what you did to prove him wrong. That was the way it was. So I knew that he had already decided that I was going to abandon him, whatever. And that was the way it was. And it didn't matter what I did. He had decided that's what was going to happen. So,
and rightly so. I mean, yes, you know, they have an uncanny instinct for this stuff. You know, it's like, well, duh, you know, I don't want anything to do with him.
At the time, I had no problem with continuing to have a relationship with him because I was concerned, you know, I was concerned about my mom, but I was also concerned about him because he had displayed some really unstable behavior when my mom had tried to leave in the past. And so I was legitimately concerned about him. And I didn't want to be his best friend, but I really at the time had no intention of just cutting everything off and saying, I'm not speaking to you again. And so, you know, I had no intention of doing that, but he had made up in his mind that that was the way it was going to be. And so, you know, he just kind of like, he would sabotage things just to prove himself right. So,
and also he wanted control. You know, you like whatever. That's not enough for him. He wants. They want to own you. They want to own you. Just yeah. Well, and likely that whole idea of let's be friends after the divorce. I'll bet you there's lots of inappropriateness involved in that.
I really feel like he was just. I think he was just saying that as a way to make him look like the good guy, right? It was like, oh, I want us to have a relationship because look at me being the bigger person. And I don't think he actually had any intention of us having any kind of a relationship, which I think that personally he intentionally sabotaged everything that was happening so that he could get out of having any sort of responsibility toward me, but it would be my fault. But anyway, I was coming back a week before the wedding, I'm trying to think about our wedding planning. I'm thinking about grandma and trying to get her all situated. We land in Oklahoma City. We are still sitting on the plane, and I turned my phone back on. I tried to call, or I did call my grandma and told her that we had landed and that we were coming to her house. And then I called my mom, and I think she wasn't with Phil, and so I called her, let her know, and then I tried to call Phil and let him know that I had made it, and the phone rang a couple times, went to voicemail, and I was like, okay, didn't leave a voicemail because I thought, well, I've already told mom, that I'm coming in, so she'll just tell him, and so, oh well, whatever, I'll just see him later. So we go back to my grandma's house, and we're trying, Joe and I are trying to get my grandma situated. We're trying to get our stuff together. And my mom comes walking in the door. And basically, the first thing she says is, I'm in trouble because of you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she says, you got in and you didn't tell Phil that you were here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I called him and it went to his voicemail. I tried to tell him, I was like, what are you talking about? Well, he said that didn't happen. He doesn't have a missed call from you. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Check the phone records. I tried to call him, like, what are we doing here? Well, I'm just, can you please just call him and, and tell him you're sorry and whatever, because I'm taking all this slack for you. He's mad at me because of you. And this was a regular occurrence, right? He would jump all over my mom so that she would get mad at me, so that I would, whatever. And I was like, I said, this is enough.
Good for
if
you.
We are seriously getting this petty over a phone call, when I am coming into town for my wedding, and my grandma is dying of cancer, and all he can think about is the fact that I haven't called him to let him know that I got in, which I did. Like, you've got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. And I said, I'm sorry, Mom, but no, we are not, I'm not going to, I'm not calling.
Sorry, did that lead to the cascading effect for the divorce also?
Did it lead to what?
Or was it part of their split as well? Your shift?
No, they were already in the process. But at that point, he was still supposed to be walking me down the aisle, and I refused to call him. I said, I called him. I didn't leave a voicemail, but I called him. I don't, at this point, it's my word against his, but I called him. I don't know what you want me to say. I am not going to call and grovel, because the whole reason that he's doing this is because he's not the center of attention. It's my wedding week and grandma is sick. He feels left out, so he's doing this to get attention. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. And that was the last. Phil and I never spoke again.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
Excellent. It was really bizarre.
Excellent.
Bizarre situation.
That
was the kind of behavior, to me, that could not be more obviously childish, petty. It was a temper tantrum. I'm not the center of attention, and so I'm going to, cause this big ruckus. It astounded me that at the time that my mom couldn't see that. I'm like, how do you not see that? It was like, what is going on? So that was definitely a lesson in the understanding unawareness department for me.
Yes, bubble awareness. It's very powerful. And fear, and stress and pressure, manipulation, and how people get you to do things like that. It's just horrible. Wow.
It's
Wow. But it turned out good. It turned out good. So
No,
fantastic,
just fine.
Erica. Fantastic. Good for you. Good for you. Good for
Fine.
you. Yeah. Like I said, I'm thrilled that it had that consequence, because to cut off. And also, his deal with you is that you never bought into his nonsense. He didn't control you. You didn't, yes, you tolerated him and you were nice, but you still did it. You saw him for what you are. And so, yeah. He would
I
have not
did. I
liked the
mean,
fact that he didn't control you the way he would have
he
liked to.
certainly he
Try.
certainly did. When I was a minor and
Yeah,
living
yeah,
under his roof,
yeah,
he was able to
yeah,
control me in ways that he wasn't when I became, when I went out on my
yeah,
own.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
he certainly, I think he continued to try to find ways to get me under his thumb
Oh, yeah.
once
Oh,
I was out of the
yeah,
house,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And it's very surprising to me that he was never, physically inappropriate with you, which that mindset, that's
I,
unique,
you know,
very
it
surprising.
surprises me too,
Yeah,
and it really surprised because he was not ever. I mean,
yeah,
not even close. He never crossed
yeah,
that line. It was really surprising to me that he was not physically abusive with me or my mom.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I have asked her on multiple occasions if he ever, if, like, please
yeah,
be honest with me. Did he ever try to hit you and you're just trying to cover for him? Like, please tell me.
yeah,
And she swears that he didn't, which
yeah.
is
I don't pick that
really
up from Kay either in the relationship, and it's likely why it lasted so long.
right,
I think
right.
he realized. I think that would have been a line for Kay as well. I
Yeah,
just suspect so. Yeah. So and,
I
you get timid bullies. It's covered later in the program, in the course. They're very timid bullies. So and Phil is very insecure. So some of them
right,
they are like that, and they never get empowered on that. If they do it once and they get away with it, then it's a drug that keeps on going. But that resistance, the fear of it, that they will lose everything, and they know this, that does keep them in line, and that's why they do all the other stuff, because they kind of are aware
right,
that they can't be a physical bully. So
right,
that's interesting.
right.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Wow, 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 wow.
Yes,
Uh,
Erica. There is one thing which is like jumping out from all your stories about that. That it's about you acknowledging, celebrating your own power.
yeah,
People
Yes,
behave in a
yes,
certain way towards you
yes.
because they feel that power, but
Mm,
you are not claiming it.
right,
So it bothers them. Okay.
right,
And the second thing about your in-laws, for me, it was totally not surprising that they become a bit lesser BMN after your marriage,
right,
because when you prove something to in front of those type of people, they actually just bow to to power only. If other person opposite to them is not claiming, not showing power or strength, they just love to bully them.
mm-hmm,
yeah,
But if you can, then they start feeling that okay, now it is something we need to be careful, because they only worship power,
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah. That's what they do.
superiority, hierarchy. So because you resist and you said that very firmly that okay, no, it's not going to happen. So they see that this strategy is not going to work with you,
right,
and you are going to claim more and more power. And if you do that, there are I think that I don't know, maybe more, but I feel that there are only two ways to deal with these type of people,
mm-hmm,
these PMNs. Either you just okay make yourself doormat for them, or just claim your power,
Be the
right,
elephant. Don't play the lion game. Be
because
the elephant. Yeah.
right.
Fantastic.
it is really
Fantastic. Wow. Wow. Wow.
That is
What
that is
magic.
one of my big struggles is how to knowing how to respond to them in a way that shows that I'm claiming my power without being like bullying them back.
Yes,
I
correct.
think that, and I think
Correct. Exactly.
That's been a problem for me basically my entire life, which is why that what was the thing that we were doing, the course? I can't remember what it was called now, but
the self-trust course.
Yeah. No, it was about started with a D.
Oh, the capital D, diplomacy.
Capital D, diplomacy.
Diplomacy. That was it. Yeah. That that I think is really important to me because I don't think I know.
Correct.
I don't know how to handle that appropriately.
Right. So right now, shift. It's not a way of doing that you're going to be looking for. It's a way of being.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to default to think I need to do stuff to deal with them. No, the elephant does absolutely nothing to deal with the lion. It is just the elephant, and that's it. It's being. That's it. That's how to deal with them. It's just to be your fullness of self, to be your elephant self, to be your moreness. You'll see as we go ahead.
Right.
It's a self-curative problem when you claim yourself and you're just like, hey, whatever you do, you do. I do what I do. End of story. That's it.
Right.
No problem.
Right.
No problem. There's an energy and an air that we give off, an atmosphere around us when we have independence of being that people just don't want to mess with it because, well, there's no point to it, and it tends to backfire on you, and it makes you look bad, and it just. So there's a lot of things that happen. So but we'll see.
Right.
You'll see. That's why I said don't worry about remedy. In this case, the understanding is the remedy. It's a self-curative problem through understanding and awareness. It's very, very, very powerful. Oh man, I love the story. This is fantastic. All these stories, I really enjoyed them. Thank you, Erica. Story time with Erica. What's the matter, Erica? What's the matter? The story made you a bit sad?
I am trying to change the font in my notes, and I was trying to look at the screen and listen at the same time.
I thought maybe the story said,
there we go.
Just seemed
no,
like
no.
All right, good. All right. Just checking, just to make sure. Font problems. I hear you. How come you're changing the font now in your notes?
I do that I have different types of font for different kind of notes. So whenever I'm taking a note that you or Beena are sharing, then I put it in a different kind of font. So.
Wow.
So that I know.
Wow. So there's a font for Selena then?
There is, yes.
Wow. Wow. That's fantastic. You hear that, Beena? Wow.
Yeah.
That makes me happy. I don't know why. That gives me joy.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yes, it is.
And color.
And what's her color? Can we see?
It's like a teal.
Teal.
I like that.
Teal. That's close to your guitar, so that's a good color.
True.
It's close to Ethel's color, so we're very honored because that's a very favorite color, isn't it?
Lucy.
Oh, Lucy. I'm sorry, Lucy. Ethel is the chicken. Lucy.
Yeah.
Lucy. So do you play Loosey Goosey on Lucy?
True to her form, Lucy is a redhead, just like Lucille Ball.
I remember that part.
Got some red on her head, so there you
go. Brilliant. How's the guitar lessons coming?
Good. They're good. Okay. I'm way behind in practicing. I've got to do some practicing, which, speaking of which, I need to probably get off of here and do some guitar practice.
No worries.
And
the ballet?
The ballet is on hold right now. They've opened up they're getting ready to open the studio up again for a summer course before the fall starts. And I don't want to be in the studio in person. Our numbers are not good right now.
Correct. No, so I mean, it's just it's not the time to do it, unfortunately, and I can't see this getting better before next summer, really. You have the whole winter, and even if they do get a vaccine ahead of schedule, it's still going to take a while to implement that vaccine. So we're looking at a while still. Till the end of the year, you would think so. But anyway, we'll take it as it comes. So brilliant.
Yep.
Brilliant,
Absolutely.
brilliant. I look forward to more installments where we are, to continue with the stuff. But again, all of what you were saying, you're expressing this through a different lens now. I mean, if you told us this story when we first met, it would have been a different story, right?
Right.
So sharing these details has essentially been a takeaway or a repeat back of the sessions. So it's very powerful. I mean, that's what started the story, really. So it's really, really powerful to see things through this lens. And it's before you, it's like, what's going on, and like, how come and why. Now you see the whys, and it gives you closure. Right? It's a very big deal.
For sure.
It's a very big deal. So ongoing though, sharing all of this with Joe in a so that it's not like, see, I told you, not obviously you're not going to do that, but where he's coming to it obviously by himself. In other words, just sharing the information, let him come to it by himself. I mean, it's difficult,
Sure.
You want to make the obvious obvious.
It is.
Patience. Just trust and have patience. So I do admire your ability to hold yourself, and to have that patience, to not share, not press a point. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to do.
I'm trying. I'm really trying. For sure.
Well, it seems like you're doing it. So seems like you're doing it. Other than that,
it is not easy.
Just make a concerted effort. If you don't do it already, that would just be, my wish. I hope that you express, your appreciation out loud to Joe. Just to verbalize it and articulate it. Because we take it for granted that people that we appreciate and love, that they know that we love and appreciate them. But it's good to actually, express it specifically, in detail it and itemize it. It's important.
I agree.
Important. So go Joe. I'm so happy that you have Joe and Joe has you. That you two got together. It makes me inordinately happy. Really, it is. Just especially with all the stuff in the world, I say, man, all right. Joe and Bill. I mean, Joe and Erica, and then Bill and Sue. They have it as well. So,
Right.
So it makes me very happy.
Awesome.
Makes me very happy. So we'll stay hopeful for Kay as well.
Yes, absolutely.
We're talking to that about today, so matchmaking a little bit in a roundabout way. At least encouraging Kay a little bit.
She always says, "I'm too old." And I'm like, "You're not too old."
She knows that never came up once. So there's progress. It's yes. Do you speak about dating? Talk about dating with Kay? Does it come up in your conversations?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have.
Good. Yeah. Because I saw in the comments that this was important to Kay.
Yeah.
It's very important. Good. So there was more interest than she sort of showed and let on, but you could see the layered underneathness. So that's coming out. So that's why I kind of went into it a little bit to say, just to get Kay to realize how important this is, and to remove blocks and obstacles, that she does this. So, it's very important. It's very important. Yeah. So, all right. Very cool. Exciting stuff happening. Yes, I'm enjoying. So, I'm assuming that you're doing, you're continuing to share with Kay in the back and forth between what you're doing, and how is that?
I forgot to call her yesterday, so I haven't gotten to talk to her about some of this stuff, but we are still
good.
swapping stories about the different courses we're doing.
Yeah, it's just helpful for her to get the perspective, through you, via you, to hear it, and so it's very good, because we can't go too much into it, because otherwise we won't do wave impeccability. And the way Kay is doing it too, so it's like, it's very cool the way it's being done, but it's also very powerful, very transformative. So all magic. I love it. And Joe is staying connected, and he's keeping up and all of this. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, it's still early days,
It
you know. I
is.
mean, you know, we've done like 10 sessions on this, which surprised me. It feels like so many more, doesn't it? Yes, I was doing the
Yes.
video.
Yeah.
I think this is like 11 or 12 or something now that we're on. So it's still early days, you know, still
Right.
early days. So long way to go. So I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. All right, Erica Jane, fantastic. Erica, see you.
All righty.
See you
Well,
tomorrow. That's right. All right, cool.
Yeah, see you
Yeah,
tomorrow.
see you tomorrow.
thank you both.
Fantastic.
And
Oh, such a pleasure.
have
Such a
a
pleasure. Just
pleasant,
you know,
pleasant dreams.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I like your new shirt, by the way. It looks great.
Yes.
Ah, finally.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks to Beena. So yeah, I'm enjoying the shirts, and I'm gonna cut my beard so you can see them better. So
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And when you appreciate Joe, be sure to appreciate yourself also.
Okay.
I mean,
I
seriously, you
my
listen
list.
to that
Absolutely.
story. It's like, man, you know, I know you weren't doing it for that purpose, but you know, for me and Bina, it's like, wow, super Erica. You know, really to appreciate ourselves in true humility and true self-honesty. It's a profound thing, you know, to say, hey, wow, you know, yeah, I was cool there, I was good there, I did, you know, I did right,
Okay.
I did good, I was sensible. I still appreciate myself. Yay,
Okay.
go Erica, go Erica.
Well, all
Very
right. Yeah.
important to appreciate yourself. Yeah, yeah. Were you a cheerleader ever?
Do what?
Were
Oh
you
no.
a, so you can't do the pom pom thing and spell out "Go Erica"? All right. Oh
I
well.
mean, I can do pom-poms, but there's no way I could do the splits for sure. So.
Oh wow, wow, wow. Was it ever something you
Oh, but
wanted to do? Oh no.
Not really. I wanted to dance, but not necessarily cheerleading.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You know, cheerleading is it's a very particular American thing. So
it is,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I
And
mean,
it's a
other
very
countries.
particular thing in
Yeah,
general. I mean,
yeah, yeah. It's
it's kind
peculiar.
of dance and it's kind of gymnastics,
Yeah, yeah,
like very particular kind of dance and
yeah, yeah,
gymnastics.
yeah.
Really
It's
interesting.
aerobics almost. Yeah,
Yeah, it's an
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. Very peculiar to other places. Like in Pakistan, I can't imagine the
Right.
cheerleading, right, Beena?
no. They try to in because
Oh,
cricket is a huge deal.
Oh,
So
that's
and
great.
now we are having because Pakistan is pioneer in modifying cricket big time. First
interesting.
was the 50 over thing, like a 1 day match. Before it
Yeah,
was test for 5 days and 3 days,
yeah,
and then neutral empires was also from Pakistan, and then now 2020, like 20 hours match is
interesting.
also a Pakistan idea. So we have PSL, which is Pakistan Cricket League, and so the matches are because of the pace. It is somehow like a thing that the mood of cricket is totally different. 2020 cricket is totally opposite to what Test cricket is. So in 2020, I saw some boys doing that and some girls also, but not in that, of course, because we have a different culture and also a religious influence also. So cheerleaders were all dressed up, but in some regional dresses, and they were doing that.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow, fascinating how things get adapted. I don't
Yeah.
know.
yeah,
I would
and
be interested
also
to see this. Yeah.
some of the matches were in Dubai. So yeah, we saw some dancers, like real true dancers there. So
Wow, wow. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Dubai is well, I can't say Dubai the way you say it, but they have a whole different logic
It-
over there. Yeah,
yeah, because it's an Arabic name, so we
yeah,
have a
yeah,
different pronunciation for.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
call it Dubai.
Venus a polyglot, by the way, and that's not an insult.
Vina is a what?
A polyglot.
Polyglot. Okay.
Mm, mm. She speaks multiple languages.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a great word. I know. It's just, you know, it's just polyglot. Yeah, yeah.
I like
I
Yeah,
think
it.
it
today
comes
today
from your little thingy at the back of your throat. What is that called? The little thingy that hangs there.
Oh, mm,
Something glot. You know, it's got to do with glot or
I thought it, I thought
something
it's,
related, like epiglot or something like that. Epiglottis.
oh, maybe so.
Yeah, but I think glot is involved there somewhere, and polyglot, you know, throat speak. So
Epiglottis is the weak
epiglottis. There we go.
flap in the throat.
Right, right. We used to call it, I don't know, we had a silly name for it as kids. It was like a little hanging man or some stupid name like that. It was like a funny name.
Today, Kay also shared a new word.
Yeah. Some wild words that we can't remember now, but anyway.
Oh, well,
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll sleep well. Brilliant.
you too.
Yeah, I don't want to go. I don't want to go, but we gotta go. So.
Yep,
Yes.
I want to get done. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
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 Oh, just love it. 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 Yeah.